Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to the online lecture mode. My name is Dr. Zishan Zeb Khadak, Associate Professor at the Institute of Business Studies, Kohat University of Science and Technology. The subject we are studying is change management, and the topic for today's lecture is change theories and types of change. Within the given topic on slide 1, the agenda for discussion is change theories and types of change. Dear students, we had a discussion on various topics of change management earlier in our classroom lectures. However, in order to set the context for discussion on this topic, let me recapitulate that change management is the process, tools, and techniques to manage the employee side of a change to achieve the required business outcomes. So it incorporates the organizational tools that can be utilized to help individuals make successful personal transactions, resulting in the adoption and realization of change. An organization can deliver its strategy only if it entails the optimal alignment of positions, accountabilities and authorities, people, deliverables and tasks. If these are not well aligned, performance obviously is going to be suboptimal. Even the research shows that about 50% of managers' direct report relationships are optimally aligned. So it seems unlikely that most organizations are best positioned to deliver their strategies. And this is why we can conclude that organizational change is an adoption of innovative ideas or behaviors due to external and internal pressures. It is all about optimizing the performance standards, and this may sometimes occur as either due to the ability of organization managerial staff to be proactive or reaction to the environmental changes or the presence of crisis as well. Whatever the case may be, the organization will always require a well-talented and very capable managerial staff to trigger any change and for it to be successful. Some valuable proposition to the causes or organizational change is also made. And in order to understand the change, we can take the aid of theories of change. And there are three theories of change. One is the dialectical theory, the other is the life cycle theory, and the other is the teleological theory. As mentioned in the earlier slides, the change theories are dialectical theory, life cycle theory, and teleological theory. The dialectical theory believed that an organization is just like a culturally diverse society with very opposing views and opinions, wherein new organizational values develop because of one force dominating the other, and a goal is thereafter established, thus resulting to organizational change, which means that increased comprehensiveness of more planners with more resources would thus lead to a better planning teams, better analysis of the environment, better options for new systems, better choices of such systems, and better implementation plans, all of which would eventually lead to improved performance. As we have discussed earlier, that if you see the example of the multinational organizations, we find people of different origins, different cultures, different races, different languages, and different colors. So where there is more diversity, with the help of managerial ability, we can achieve more productivity. Because when there is a difference of opinion, when there is a difference of ideas, there is a better chance that we have a bigger pool of ideas. And if we have a bigger pool of ideas, there is a better chance that we will reach to the better decision. And see, organizational change is basically meant to increase organizational effectiveness and facilitating personal and organizational change using interventions driven by social and behavioral science. This social and behavioral science is so important. This is where the human resource managers become very important, to the CEOs of the organization, to the presidents of the organization. for the reason that they understand the human attitudes, they understand the human perceptions, their behaviors. They can actually motivate people well to the advantage of the organization. They can understand the expectations of the people. They can put forward the incentives according to the expectation, and they can move people towards better enthusiasm. They can move people towards better realistic approach in order to achieve better results for the organization. So what actually happens is, when you have this culturally diverse society prevailing in the organization, there is always a managerial ability required. If that managerial ability is required, then the change is to be embraced. It is not to be feared. Well, the life cycle theory is of assertion that every organization is an entity of its own, with both an internal and external environment, with cycles from birth, growth, maturity, and declination. You must have studied in your previous subjects as well that the organization is just like a living organism. It is born, it lives an infancy period, it lives a growth period as well, and it reaches to the maturity period, and it declines as well. Obviously, in the infancy, the organization uh, comes across lots of challenges. The organization grows over the period of time. Then comes the time of maturity, where the organization enjoys normally the reasonable slice of the market share, and then comes the time where the organization declines, and that is the time where the manager responds by regenerating the organization so that it actually survives in the competitive market. Similarly, the change has its own life cycle as well, because when you're bringing about a new system, when you're restructuring a system, when you're actually going, for example, from the manual based system to the digital based system or computer based system, what happens is that there is a time when people do not, when very few people accept the change. It is probably the infancy time. Then comes the time when the change agents actively work and they get the new system accepted by the majority of the people, and that is the growth stage. And then there comes a time where everybody accepts the change, and the change becomes a normal practice. And then when that normal practice is adopted by the organization, comes a time when there is a time for bringing about a new change in order to get the organization towards the development. Because when there is a change, there is always a development, and change is always for the good. As I've already told you, that whenever the organization talks about the change management, it is moving from the good to the better, and from the better to the best. Organization has its philosophy that there is nothing as permanent as the change, and there is no end to the excellence. In order to reach to the excellence, the organization has to work and bring about change for the sake of development. Now, furthermore, the Uh, teleological theorist is of the perspective that any change in an organization is as a result of an attempt to achieve an ideal state with continuous process starting from goal setting, execution, evaluation, and finally restructuring. As I've already mentioned in my previous slide, that change is a permanent feature of the organization. There's nothing as permanent as change, and there is no end to the excellence. Therefore, this change process is a continuous process, and it starts from searching for the good option, so that the goals are set out of a research process. Every goal is evaluated in terms of its cost and benefit analysis, and the one with efficient nature is set as a goal. Then the organization develops a line of action to achieve that goal, and that line of action is implemented, and execution is done. And whenever the organization actually is finished with the implementation, there is always a evaluation process, so that they can identify the good points out of it, so that they could be adopted for the follow-on period. And they also try and identify the pitfalls, so that they can avoid it for the further time period. And similarly, when the organization actually is finished with the evaluation process, Then in the light of that evaluation, a restructuring is done, a new goal is set, it is executed, it is implemented, it is evaluated, and as a result, a follow-on plan is developed. So it's a continuous process. Organization basically continues with the change process for the reason that the organization always want to develop itself. Change is inevitable, is for better or for worse depending upon where you view it. Change is something that presses on our comfort zone. We go from the comfort zone to the difficult zone, and that is difficult because it is strange, and people do resist it because they initially feel insecure, and then with the passage of time, when they're on the top of their job, when they understand the nuts and bolts, when they are adjusted with the new system, then that difficult zone becomes the comfort zone. But unless and until the organization moves from the comfort zone, the organization cannot develop. The organization has to be flexible enough to adjust with the new situation and systems, because we are running with the technology at the pace where everything is possible. And in such a context, the organization needs to change itself on the continuous basis. Well, now, what type of organizational change a company requires or is going through varies depending on person's point of view. For example, a manager in technology may see it in terms of systems, tools, software, hardwares, etc. But the CEO will invariably perceive change in terms of structure and strategy. An operation manager will mainly see it in terms of processes, etc. But in most cases, the change is so complex and intricate that nobody can really define it fully from a specific standpoint. Well, but some of the common types of organizational change we are going to discuss here. The first type is mission and strategy. It has a company-wide impact, the company's aims and goals and how it plans to accomplish them. Hardly any change in an organization is related to its mission and strategy. Mission and strategy affect every part of business. Therefore, any change in this area has a company-wide impact, because mission is basically the nature of the business and the scope of the business. If the nature of the business is changed, the scope of the business is changed, obviously it's going to affect the entire organization. Similarly, the strategy is the long-term plan from which we derive our short-term plans. 20 years plan, 5 years plans are derived from the 20 years plan, and yearly plan is derived from probably the 5 years plans. So if the long-term plan is changed, obviously it's going to affect the short-term plans as well, or the short-term lines of action as well. The second type of change is about policies and legal agreements. It may be highly popular with customers. Such change may be highly unpopular with the customers, or they may be popular with the customers, because when the organization strikes new legal agreements, or when the policies are changed, it may increase the price, it may decrease the price of the product, and some customers may still lock in with the company and some customers may lock out. So it all depends upon the kind of policy or the kind of change which is brought about in the policy and legal agreement. Such a type of change, even a minor one, may have a significant impact on a company, because naturally the organization is run by the policies and legal agreements, and if such legal agreements and policies are changed, it is going to affect the plans, the procedures, the operations, and the scale with which different projects are developed. The other type of change is organizational structure, the hierarchy within an organization which defines each job and department, their functions, and where they report to. When two commercial enterprises merge or one takes over the other, there are major structural changes. Sometimes the change may be minor, such as when a new team is established, but sometimes it can be a major change. The organizational structure, if it is centralized or if it is decentralized, it changes the responsibilities and authorities of the people working in those hierarchies. It actually all the SOPs, all the coordination work, every small little procedure, the tasks are actually derived from the structure. So any such change will have an impact on the organization. Then the other type of change is the process is a collection of linked tasks which find their end in the delivery of a product or a service to consumers. Processes and tasks are commonly altered during organizational change. In some organizations, changing or upgrading processes is ongoing or done on a regular basis. The organization actually benchmark its processes, its practices with the leading organizations, and they learn lessons from the leading organizations and tries to bring about best practices. And those best practices, when they come into the organization, the processes are changed for the good. So any kind of change in the processes is on the regular basis because the organization wants to improve on the regular basis. And then the other kind of change is the personal change. It includes hiring and firing of people, training of people. It is about job rotations, different roles, responsibilities, and any kind of a change which is related to the workforce is basically the personnel change. It is always like this, that the organization is always organization has its succession plan. Many people of the organization, they may get retired, they may seek retirement early, they may leave the organization for the good, they may be sometimes fired unwantedly, sometimes the organization goes for the downsizing, sometimes the organization will have to bring about the change in the personnel for some legal or some external pressures, because of the external pressures. Anyhow, the organization always tries to train their people in order to develop their capacities so that they can work better for the organization. For example, when the manual based system was changed to the digital based system, the people of the organization were changed. Many people who were cyberphobes were given the computer training and were actually adjusted with the new digital based working. So when capacity of the people are changed, it's a personnel change. When the roles are changed for the job, for example the job rotation, it's a personnel change. When their responsibilities are changed, it's a personnel change. And such type of a change is also on the regular basis, because the organization wants people to develop a conceptual skill and wants people to develop and operate in the succession plan, so that people could see their career path and they could actually realize that this organization is going to give them individual development as well, and that individual development is aligned with the organizational development. And this is how people do not leave the organization. The turnover is limited, people's turnover is limited, and the organization can actually survive in a better way. The other type of change is about culture. It refers to the pervasive beliefs, values, and attitudes that characterize a firm and guides its practices. Any change in these areas can have a profound impact on every aspect of the organization, including innovation, compliance, and productivity. You must have already studied this in organizational behavior. Culture is most important and very important thing. This organizational culture changes with the changing time. For example, culture in the organization in the 70s was quite different from the cultures of today. There is more diversity in the organization because of this boom in the communication technology, because of this development in the transportation. People are now they migrate from the smaller villages to the bigger to the smaller cities, and from the smaller cities to the bigger cities, from the smaller countries to the bigger countries. So there is always a chance to find people of different colors, origins, race, religions in the organization, and we have a very vibrant and diverse culture prevailing in the organization. And that culture actually is like, we have to keep it conducive to adjust with the new technology, to adjust with the new industrial practices. There's another type of change which is in the product. It's always is like this, that the product, we have to keep on changing the product and we have to keep it aligned with the customer's needs. So changes to products and everything related to encouraging consumers to buy them, marketing and Sales are essential focus for the most organization. People of marketing, they keep in touch with the customers. They just try to identify their needs and their changing priorities and preferences. They bring those that data to the organization, and the production works on it, and they develop such a product which actually is liked in the market, which has its sale in the market, because this is the only way the organization can survive, if they are aligning their product development, and they are aligning their product with the customer needs. Then there is another type of change, which is in knowledge. Knowledge again is like an ongoing thing. It is changed every second, it is changed every minute and hour, and organizations who actually have this updated knowledge in the organization can capitalize and have a competitive advantage over their competitors. It supports every product, processes, initiatives, projects, and programs. Change here refers to knowledge assets of the company. Knowledge assets are the information or skills within an organization that make it more competitive or valuable. And the other type of change, which is the last but not the least, is in technology. As I've told you earlier, that we are running with a technology at the pace where everything is possible. Today, virtually every commercial enterprise is some kind of tech company. Sometimes a company makes changes to its technology, infrastructure, automation, systems, hardware, and software, etc. We can take the example of Kohat University of Science and Technology. A few years back, we were a manual-based. We were working on a manual-based system. Students' admission, their registration, their exams, and everything was manual-based. All their files and their data was kept manual. But with the passage of time, we had this new technology, the Campus Management Solution, or the KCMS, Cust Campus Management Solution or system, which actually has changed many things. It has made us more efficient, more effective, and this automation system has made things very easier for the students and for the teachers. Likewise, all the organization, almost every organization, as I've said, that has become a tech company, is for the reason that they have this automation system in place, and the manual system is now obsolete. With this, we come to the end of our pre-recorded lecture on change theories and types of change. If you feel like to ask any questions, please let me know through our WhatsApp message or on the KCMS comments. I can arrange the interactive sessions and I can respond to your questions, or you can just send me an email on which I can respond to your questions. Thank you so much.